जय राधा माधव राधा माधव राधे।
जय राधा माधव माधव
जय गौरनिताय 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 जय गौरनिताय।
जय गौरनिताय 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 जय गौरनिताय।
जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद।
जय
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 प्रभुपाद
प्रभुपाद
प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद।
जय श्री श्री राधा माधवाष्ट सखी की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ॐ
ॐ
नमो
नमो भगवते
भगवते
वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ॐ
ॐ
नमो
नमो
भगवते
भगवते
वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
Reading from Bhagavad Gita chapter 4 verse 30. Sarvepyete yajnavido
सर्वेऽप्येते
सर्वेऽप्येते
यज्ञविधो
यज्ञविदो
यज्ञक्षपित कल्मषाः
यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः
यज्ञशिष्टामृत भुजो
यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो
यान्ति ब्रह्म सनातनम्।
यान्ति ब्रह्म सनातनम्।
सर्वेप्येते यज्ञविदो
सर्वेऽप्येते
यज्ञविदो
यज्ञविधो
यज्ञक्षपित कल्मषाः
यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः
यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः
यज्ञशिष्टामृत भुजो
यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो
यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो
यान्ति ब्रह्म सनातनम्।
यान्ति
यान्ति
ब्रह्म
ब्रह्मा
सनातनम्।
सनातनम्।
सर्वेप्येते यज्ञविदो
सर्वेऽप्येते
सर्वेऽप्येते
यज्ञविदो
यज्ञविधो
यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः
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 यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो
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 यान्ति ब्रह्म सनातनम्।
यान्ति
यान्ति ब्रह्म
ब्रह्मा
सनातनम्।
सनातनम्।
Anyone would like to recite?
सर्वेऽपि इति यज्ञविदो
सर्वेप्येते
सर्वेऽप्येते
सर्वेऽप्येते
यज्ञविदो
यज्ञविधो
यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषः
यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः
यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः
यज्ञशिस्त्रामृतभुजो
यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो
यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो
यान्ति ब्रह्म सनातनम्
Yanti
यान्ति
Brahma
ब्रह्म सनातनम्।
Sanatanam. Thank you, Radhika. Happy birthday.
Hard to follow you now. सर्वेऽप्येते यज्ञविधो
Sarvepyete yajnavido
यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः
yajnakshapita kalmashaha
यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो
yajnashishtamrita bhujo
यान्ति ब्रह्म सनातनम्।
yanti brahma sanatanam.
सर्वेऽपि एत यज्ञविदो
Sarvepyete
सर्वेऽप्येते
yajnavido
यज्ञविधो
यज्ञाशपितकल्मषा
yajnashishtamrita
यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः
kalmashaha
यज्ञाशिष्टामृतभोजो
yajnashishtamrita
यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो
bhujo
यान्ति ब्रह्मा सनातनम्
यान्ति
यान्ति
ब्रह्म
ब्रह्मा
सनातनम्।
सनातनम्।
सर्वे अपि एते यज्ञाविदो
सर्वेप्येते
सर्वेऽप्येते
यज्ञविदो
यज्ञविधो
यज्ञशापीतकल्मषः
यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः
यज्ञक्षपितकल्मषाः
यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजो
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 Yanti Brahma Sanatanam.
Yanti Brahma Sanatanam.
Sarve,
Sarve.
Sarve.
all,
All.
api,
Api.
although apparently different.
Although apparently different.
Ete,
Ete.
Ete.
these,
These.
yajna vidaha,
Yajna Vidaha.
conversant with the purpose of performing sacrifices.
Yajna Vidaha. Conversant with the purpose of performing sacrifices.
Yajna kshapita,
Yagna Shakti.
Yajna Kshapita.
being cleansed as the result of such performances.
Being cleansed as the result of such performances.
Kalmashaha,
Kalmashaha.
of sinful reactions.
Of sinful reactions.
Yajna shishta,
Yagna
Yajna Shishta.
of the result of such performances of yajna.
Of the result of such performances of Yajna.
Yagna.
Amrita bhujaha,
Amrita Bhujaha.
those who have tasted such nectar.
Those who have tasted such nectar.
Yanti,
Yanti.
do approach.
Do approach.
Brahma,
Brahma.
the supreme.
The supreme.
Sanatanam,
The Sanatanam.
eternal atmosphere.
Eternal atmosphere.
Here.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifices, they advance toward the supreme eternal atmosphere. Purport. From the foregoing explanation of different types of sacrifice, namely sacrifice of one's possessions, study of the Vedas, or philosophical doctrines and performance of the yoga system, it is found that the common aim of all is to control the senses. Sense gratification is the root cause of material existence. Therefore, unless and until one is situated on a platform apart from sense gratification, there is no chance of being elevated to the eternal platform of full knowledge, full bliss, and full life. This platform is the eternal atmosphere or Brahman atmosphere. All the above mentioned sacrifices help one to become cleansed of the sinful reactions of material existence. By this advancement in life, not only does one become happy and opulent in this life, but also at the end, he enters into the eternal kingdom of God, either merging into the impersonal Brahman or associating with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Shah. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in this verse, the key statement Prabhupada makes in the purport is, unless one is situated on a platform apart from sense gratification, there is no chance of being elevated. So if we want to advance in spiritual life, the first thing that we need to do is to control the senses. So when someone can fully control their senses, they can come to this Brahman platform. So in that platform, one reaches the eternity, but they really don't know the knowledge and bliss yet. They come to the platform of eternity by controlling the senses. They can realize the Brahman aspect of the Supreme Lord. There are three aspects of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Does anyone know what they are? Radhika.
Brahman, Parama. Oh, go ahead, Radhika.
I don't know.
Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan.
Okay,
Very good.
Where did you learn it?
In Bhakti Rasa, right? You went Bhakti Rasa, they're teaching you, right?
I'm just advertising it.
No, Mataji. He learned on Bhakti Rasa.
So, if one wants to go from Brahman to Paramatma, after that, after going to that Paramatma realization, then they can know both Sat and Chit, eternity and knowledge. And when someone goes from Paramatma level to Bhagavan, which is the ultimate realization of the absolute truth, then they can realize all the aspects, Sat, Chit and Ananda, eternity, knowledge and bliss. So if someone wants to control the senses, what is the reason why we should control the senses, and what happens if someone doesn't? Lord Kapila, he instructs Mother Devahuti. Devahuti was the daughter of Swayambhu Manu. She gets married to Kardama. Kardama is a very great sage. And Devahuti, she was the princess of the emperor of the whole entire Bhumandala, or even heavenly planets. So she was very beautiful, and many demigods wanted to marry her, but her father thought Kardama Muni is the suitable husband for her. So she goes to Kardama Muni's ashram after she gets married. Then she serves him very faithfully for a very long time, even not caring for her own bodily comfort. Her hair was all matted, and she didn't care to maintain her body so much. And she looked very skinny after many years. Kardama Muni used to always meditate on the Supreme Lord, and she used to provide all the necessities, and she only ate what is available in the forest. Coming from such a royal background, still she could endure so much austerity. She did that, and after some time, Kardama Muni notices that Devahuti sacrificed so much of her own existence to serve him. So he becomes very pleased. And then with his mystic power, he creates this aerial mansion where they can live. And then actually, when he gets married to Devahuti, he tells Swayambhu Manu that I'll only be married until she has kids. After that, I'll take sannyas and I'll just engage in worshipping the Lord again, just like I am worshipping him now. So after some time, Devahuti has 9 daughters. And then after they are born, Kardama gets ready to leave home. So Devahuti, she becomes very sad. She says, these are all daughters. They'll get married and they'll go away. And then who will take care of me? How can I live? I need a protector. So then Kardama Muni stays back again, and then he tells that the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, he'll appear from your womb, and he's going to protect you. So after Lord Kapila appears from the womb of Devahuti, that's when Kardama actually leaves. And then Kapila, after some time, he was also getting ready to leave home and become a sannyasi. So Devahuti, she tells him, I really didn't pay attention to my own spiritual life all these days, and I don't know anything. Can you please instruct me? So that's when Lord Kapila, he instructs his mother Devahuti in the transcendental science. So Kapila, he begins with the glories of devotional service. He spends a lot of time explaining how devotional service is so potent. It can give detachment from this world, it can give us God realization, and everything happens very easily for a person who's engaged in devotional service to the Lord. And in his instructions, he also gives this famous verse which describes the qualities of sadhu. Titikshava Karunika. That verse, he explains that. And then he explains all these fundamental principles of material nature, just like physics. From Mahat Tattva, it's a big substance, and from that, how different elements come from each other, and then how all the different sense objects will be formed. So this whole science he explains. And after that, he gives the full details of how living entity conducts himself in this material world. That's when he talks about several things that are related to this verse, about how he gets entangled, sense gratification, several things like that. So he begins out saying, oh, I was supposed to move the slides and I didn't. So this is Kardama and Devahuti, and this is Kapila and Devahuti. So when he starts explaining about living entity, he tells that, when there are clouds in the sky, they cannot estimate the power of the wind. They just think that, I'm in this place. But when there is a strong wind, the wind can move the clouds to wherever it wants. So similarly, a person in material consciousness, he doesn't know the influence of time. He thinks he is in this particular situation permanently. He doesn't know how time can, in a flick of a second, change the situation of the living entity. The time can just either take the person out of this material world or change the situation so much that one can't even believe. As I was speaking, I just remembered one of our family friend for many, many years. He came from India. He did his master's here, and then he got married to somebody from here. And she did law. Like studying law here is not easy. And he worked very hard to pay for everything, and she finished her law. They had her graduation, and the very same night or the night after that, she got a brain stroke. And it was so devastating for him. She could never come back. He tried many different ways, took her everywhere and spent a lot of money, but she could never come back to normal life. She was bedridden after that. She could hardly remember anybody. And so the life changed in a moment. It was all good the night before, but then after one day, it's all gone. So that's the influence of time. We never know what happens in this material world. So not knowing, a misguided materialist, he thinks that this body is permanent, and then gets very attracted to the home, the land he possesses, the wealth, and all those relationships, the bodily relationships, my family, my children. All these things are temporary, but the living entity thinks they are permanent. So the ignorance is so strong that in any species of life, the living entity, they find satisfaction in their own species of life. There is this one story of Indra becoming a hog, a pig, and he has this big family. He has his wife and several children. Pigs have a lot of children. He just survived by eating stool. And Narada Muni comes to remind him that the time in pig's body is over. You have to go back to the Indraloka. It's like, what? How can I leave my family and go? So nice here. Look at my wife. She's so beautiful. And my kids, they're so cute. How can I leave and go? So this is how it is. Any species of life, the living entity finds satisfaction. Kardama Muni says, even in hell, people find some enjoyment, hellish enjoyment. So this satisfaction with one standard of living is due to deep-rooted attraction for body, for wife, for home, for children, for animals, for wealth, for friends. So in such association, the living entity thinks, I'm perfect, I'm doing great. And actually, the householder who's so attached, he's burning with anxiety. And people do so many things that are actually not according to the codes of dharma to maintain their family, maintain their prestige, or all those things that are extended sense gratification, or even the actual sense gratification. This householder life is full of politics and diplomacy, according to Kapila. So this householder lives with, like, spreads miseries. I didn't understand why Kapila was saying this, but as I think the misery comes because of the reactions of sinful activities. And if we engage in sense gratification, and there will be reactions which will cause miseries. So that's why living a life of attachment to material things will spread misery. And the materialistic person, he's controlled by acts of sense gratification. And then he just acts, and then miseries will come, reactions will come, and then he tries to counteract those reactions. And when he can successfully counteract those reactions, he thinks he's happy. That is the material life. So much corruption people engage in to satisfy their family. And people want to earn a lot of money at the risk of corruption. They earn much more than what they actually enjoy. So any materialistic man, he can't eat more than a few chapatis, according to Srila Prabhupada, couple of chapatis. But he engages in so many of these activities to earn more and more money. His enjoyment is much less than his suffering because of all those sinful activities he performed. He will take the reactions of all that. Family may enjoy his money, but they won't take the reactions of how he earned the money, the activities involved in earning the money. So he lives his life like that. And then eventually, like as he gets older, he may become unsuccessful in certain things. And then when the family sees that this person is getting old, he's not being able to gratify my senses, he's not being able to support my sense gratification, they don't treat him with respect anymore. They don't treat him with the same respect. Just like, a farmer has this very strong ox, which was serving him to till the land and do other heavy things. When the ox gets old and worn out, the ox is not treated so well. Similarly, materially attached man, when he becomes not so successful, not so capable, he's not treated so well. And then the old age sets in. So many problems with old age. The eyes won't function so well. All the optical nerves that are attached to the eyes, they become weak. People won't be able to see anymore, not so well, can't hear so well. And then all these other diseases will come, joints and hands and legs. They won't be able to move so easily. So old age is a pain in itself. And then eventually death comes. He comes under the clutches of death. And in the exact words, Lord Kapila said, in this way, he comes under the clutches of death and lies down, surrounded by lamenting friends and relatives. And although he wants to speak with them, he no longer can, because he's under the control of time. Thus, the man who engaged with uncontrolled senses in maintaining a family dies in great grief, seeing his relatives crying. He dies most pathetically in great pain and without consciousness. So, this is how Lord Kapila says. Most importantly, he emphasizes the fact that a person who lived with uncontrolled senses, his death also will be pathetic. And then after he dies, he'll see these Yamadutas who are terrifying. They are very horrifying to look at. Yamadutas, when they come, the person who passed away in fear, he passes stool and urine, and he's arrested like a criminal. A person engaged in criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by the Yamadutas. So they bind him, they bind his neck with strong ropes and cover his subtle body. They pull the subtle body out of gross body. And it's very hard for the subtle body to leave the gross body because it's very attached. And that's what it thinks is his identity. So they have to pull it out. So they pull it out and they take the subtle body to undergo severe punishment. So they carry the subtle body and he's like overwhelmed with fear. And while taking him, he will be bitten by dogs and he can remember all the sinful activities he performed in his last life. And he feels so bad about himself. So while taking, there is hot sun on the head and there will be like strong forest fires on both sides. And then the roads are made of hot sand. So that's how he was taken. And then he's whipped on the back while taking. And he's afflicted by hunger and thirst, and there is no water. He can't even drink water. And there is no shelter, no place. So while passing like that, he becomes unconscious many times. It's like a very strong misery, strong experience of misery. And then even if he becomes unconscious, he's forced to rise again. And then quickly he was taken to Yamaraja. So he passes through 99,000 yojanas within 2 or 3 moments. And then, when he goes to Yamaraja, obviously they'll look at all his accounts and then they'll give punishments. And then, sometimes the punishments depend, in Canto 5, there are several descriptions of what kind of punishment each sinful activity will give. Sometimes it could be, bitten by serpents, scorpions. Sometimes it could be, limbs are torn off. Sometimes he was thrown off from hilltops or, all these different things. Especially, Kapila mentions that people who engage in illicit sex, there is a special hell for them. So those hells are reserved for those people, and it's very painful to go there. And then Lord Kapila tells, my dear mother, so it is sometimes said that we experience hell or heaven even on this planet. Hellish punishments don't have to wait until we die. Sometimes they are avoided even in this life. And after leaving the body, a man who maintained his family, all his sons, daughters, grandsons, he suffers like this hellish life. Even his relatives will also suffer because of some of the reactions. They won't take all of them, but some of them. Then he goes through all these hellish punishments. And after that, he has to take birth again. So he again enters the womb of a mother because he's not liberated. He has to take birth again. And then within the womb, there is this whole description of how, the embryo develops. Initially, like it's like a bubble. And then after 10 days, it'll become like a plum. And gradually it becomes like an egg. And then in the first month, the head is formed. In 2 months, hands, feet, and other limbs are formed. And in 3 months, nails, bones, fingers, toes, body hair, skin, they all appear. Even eyes, nostrils, ears, mouth, all these things appear. And 4th month, all the 7 ingredients of the body are formed. Child, blood, flesh, fat, bone, marrow, and semen come into existence. And at the end of 5 months, the baby could feel the hunger and thirst. And then at the end of 6 months, the baby begins to move within the abdomen. So how does the baby survive within the womb? He takes the food from the mother. If the mother eats very spicy food, the baby will suffer within the womb. And then there are so many kinds of worms in the belly of the mother. And, the baby will be bitten by all those worms. The skin of a baby is very tender. And when something bites into that tender skin, there is a lot of pain. Because of that, the baby becomes unconscious again and again. It's a terrible condition within the womb of the mother. And if mother eats some sour or salty or some pungent food, and the pain is, at that time, the pain is very intolerable. So that's why it's advised that pregnant ladies don't eat any spicy food. And then child remains lying on one side of the womb, and then his head turns downwards. Child remains like the bird in the cage without any freedom of movement. And then he really grieves. If the child is fortunate, then he can remember the past 100 births. He can remember everything, all the activities he has done, sinful, pious, everything. And when he can remember that within this very miserable condition, where is the possibility of peace? It's very hard, that situation. So he actually has consciousness starting 7th month, and he remembers all these things. And in that condition, he prays to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He says that he takes shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's lotus feet, and he prays for relief from all this fear, from all this condition of life. He prays that it is befitting my impious activities, because he actually remembers all the impious activities. Right now we don't. That's why if something happens, we feel like, why is this happening to me? I'm not that bad. So the baby in the womb who's pious, they know why it's happening to them. So they kind of realize it, and they accept that this is because of my impious activities. I'm a pure soul, but because I'm bound by my activities, I'm lying in this womb of my mother. This is the arrangement of Maya. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, who is also here with me. So the soul of the baby, he knows that the Supreme Lord is with him. And he also knows that the Supreme Lord is unaffected and he's changeless, he's unlimited. So he's perceived in my repentant heart. So to him, I offer my respectful obeisances. I'm separated from the Lord now because I'm in this material body and I misused my qualities and senses. So this is another place Lord Kapila emphasizes the misuse of senses. That is the root cause of material existence. So it is emphasized again and again, and the soul within the womb is praying that I misused my senses. Although I'm spiritual, I misused them. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is transcendental to this material nature. And because he doesn't have this material body, he's always glorious. I offer my obeisances unto him. So he further prays that I'm under this influence of material nature. And I continue this hard struggle for existence on this path of repeated birth and death. And this is all because I forgot my relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So without his mercy, how can I get back on track? How can I again engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord? So no one other than Paramatma, who is right here with me, he can guide me. He's present in the past, he's present in the future, he's present in the present. So therefore, I want to surrender to him. Under his guidance, I want to engage in activities which can free me from these threefold miseries. So in this, pool of blood and stool and urine, he prays, "Oh my Lord, when can I get relief from this confinement?" So because of your mercy, I'll be able to get my awakening. I'll be able to become conscious of my actual position. There is no way I could do it without your causeless mercy. So he prays, and then he expresses his desperateness, he expresses his willingness to live a life which is not of sense gratification. So he prays like that, and then he'll be able to get out of this womb. And then as soon as he gets out of the womb, because of the trauma he had to endure to come out, he forgets everything. Then he doesn't know anything after that. He's just in these hands of all the adults. And it's not so easy to be a baby, although everyone loves babies. They have to just lie down on the bed, and they can't express what they're feeling. It's anything rough they can't handle, and they just have to be in their own stool and urine, which is not a very good thing. And they just cry for everything. And sometimes mother may misunderstand why the baby is crying. Maybe his diaper is wet, but mother may think the baby is hungry, and she may try to feed the baby. And sometimes mother can never understand why the baby is crying. So they grow up to become boys, and then after becoming a boy, they are frustrated that they can't do what they want to do. And again, the child goes through that boyhood and then grows up. And again, the same cycle repeats. because he's identifying with this material world. He increases his false prestige and anger, creates enmity with other like-minded lusty people, and he is in this ignorance that he accepts this body as all in all non-permanent things he accepts as permanent. For the sake of this body, he does so many things, and then again he goes through this repeated birth and death. And a man who's very attached to women, he has to become a woman in his next life. So Prabhupada, actually Lord Kapila himself, he says that a person who wants to advance in spiritual life, he shouldn't associate with women so much. He shouldn't even associate with men who are attached to women. And same thing for a woman. When a man becomes woman, again the woman has to just not be under this illusion that this man is the one who's providing me everything, who's providing me wealth, progeny, house, and other material assets. And then again she gets attached to a man. It's again a cycle. He'll become a man, she'll become a man, and then man becomes woman. So one has to get rid of this cycle of birth and death. So in this way, different kinds of bodies will come for a materialistic living entity, and they may go to different planets, they may engage in different fruitive activities, and then he kind of enjoys the results or suffers the results. So living entity gets a suitable body with material mind and senses. So when reaction to all these things end, that's when the living entity gets liberated. So one should not view death with horror. A devotee doesn't view death with horror because he's getting closer to Krishna when a devotee dies. So when someone is endowed with right vision and strengthened by devotional service and a pessimistic attitude towards material identity. So we should not get too attached to the material identities. That is the pessimistic attitude towards material identities. We have so many material identities. We identify as, as a high achiever in the school. It begins with that. And then you identify as a very good employee. You identify yourself as a good mother or good father or a good child, and we identify ourselves as very capable person. Like if we possess some skills, maybe a good book distributor or a good cook, like that. There are so many identifications that we get attached to. The only identification that we should get attached to is I am the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. In that way, there is no rebirth. As long as we have any other identification, there is always rebirth, because our identification is for material things. We may be able to do some services very nicely. We may be able to, play some roles like in Varnashrama system very nicely. But it is all given by Krishna. And whatever skills or abilities Krishna gives, we can use it in his service. But we should also know that Krishna can retract those skills anytime he wants. Whatever he has given, we use it for his service as long as he gives it to us. So one story is the story of Arjuna. He was helped by Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Personally, Krishna was present with him, and he could defeat so many warriors. Bhishma, Karna, Drona, they're not ordinary people, and to defeat them is extremely difficult. But Krishna was present with Arjuna, and he bestowed that mercy on Arjuna, and he has given those skills to Arjuna. So he could defeat all these great warriors, and Kurukshetra war was over. And then after they come back, actually the charioteer has to get down first and then help the master, who in this case is Arjuna, to get down. But this time Krishna says, Arjuna, you get down first. Arjuna was confused, but because he's a surrendered devotee, he gets down. And then after Krishna gets down, the whole chariot burns down to ashes. So because of Krishna's presence, it was being maintained. Otherwise, with all the arrows that everybody shot, it was destroyed long time ago. And he gets the same realization after Krishna disappears from this planet. When Arjuna goes to see Krishna in Dwaraka after a long time, he finds that Krishna disappeared, and all these other cowherd men, they were trying to take away the queens somewhere. Actually, queens also left along with Krishna. These are just the representations, the material counterparts. So when all the cowherd men, the other cowherd men, when they were trying to steal Krishna's wives, queens, Arjuna tries to defeat them. This man who defeated all these great warriors, he could not defeat even a single cowherd boy. That's when he understands that all my abilities are because of what Krishna has given me. And now that Krishna has left, I have no ability. So this happens in devotees' lives also. Sometimes, they've done certain kind of services for a very long time, and after that they may not be able to do those services out of physical inabilities or circumstances, or anything could be the reason. That's because Krishna used us in a certain way for some time, and after that he has different plans, and he won't be able to give us the same skills. So at that point, if we are attached to the image of us being a certain way of this identity, then it becomes very, very hard. So whenever there is any material identification, that's when this detachment becomes a problem also. So if we are just attached to this identity of serving Krishna, then there won't be any disappointment. Krishna's service is unlimited, and we can always serve in some way or the other. There is no limitation for service. So in that way, when someone cultivates proper mood, then there is no attitude towards material identity. And then a person can relegate his body to this illusory world through the reason. Through reason, he can give up this material identity, and then he can leave at the time of death unconcerned with this material world. It is not like the same as that materialistic person's example Kapila gave. Because he's so attached, the subtle body has to be pulled out. For a devotee, it should not be like that. If a devotee practiced properly, then at the time of death, it's not a question of pulling out at all. The devotee is totally detached and he's happy to move forward and come closer to Krishna. Either it's going back to Godhead or taking a better life to execute Krishna consciousness. So that's all I have for today. Any comments or questions?
Very nice, Sundari Radhika Mataji. Would be nice if you remembered everything from the womb, huh? For all our lives.
Yes. Then we'll be praying like we were praying in the womb.
I know. Oh, so unfortunate. Even in our present life, when we have difficulties, we remember Krishna like anything, right?
Yes.
And then the moment the difficulties are over,
Mm.
it seems so easy to forget,
Yeah. Yeah. I also noticed that the rounds are better when there are
Yeah. Oh my
difficulties.
God, you surrender to the rounds like anything when you're in some great distress, either your children or you are in great distress, and then the moment everything comes to a little bit of a calm, and that makes me realize, like, in fact, there's a verse by Kabir Das. I don't know if you remember. I'm sure whoever studied Hindi might have studied it in school. All that, every kid. Sukh mein samira na karai, dukh mein karai na koi. Sukh mein sumira na karai, to dukh kahe hoy.
Ah.
I never quite understood it when I was actually studying it in school. So like, dukh mein sumira na sab karai. We all do that, right? Sukh mein karai na koi, sukh mein sumira na karai, to dukh kahe hoy. If we truly surrender to the holy name when we are in happiness or distress, regardless of happiness and distress, then he says dukh kahe hoy. Then there is no sadness at all ever in your life, because you're always in happiness and always in peace, because you truly understand getting connected to the holy name. Even when you are in a contented position, it distress or contentment makes no difference. If you're truly sukh mein sumera na karai, like if you're truly doing smaran when you are happy,
Yeah.
then there is no dukh kahe ho, he says. So it's such a simple doha, but there's so much deep meaning in it.
Yes, it's very nice, Mataji. You shared that. Yeah, that's important. We have to tolerate the happiness also. That's what
Right,
Bhagavad Gita
right.
says, right?
Yeah. And not get distracted by it. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
like we should not get distracted by the distress, we should not get distracted by the happiness also, and kind of become complacent.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it happens in different degrees with everybody. For some people, it may not be obvious. For some people, it may be obvious. Uh, when layoffs happen, like in the Idaho where I lived before, it's a small place. There are only a couple of companies, and when layoffs happen in one of the companies, people used to visit the temple very often. But
I don't think it's just in Idaho. I think it's everywhere that happens.
and then when everything is good, then they stop coming. So this is very obvious. For a materialistic person, it's shown in actions, but for us devotees, we may not show anything in action, but when the intensity with which we do varies depending on whether we are in distress or happiness.
Yes.
To become consistent in both of those is what is liberation, probably.
Exactly.
Nice point, Mataji. Anything else? Anyone else wants to add or share some realization?
Mataji, I have Hare Krishna. Mataji, I have a question.
Yes. We'll see.
The question is that when the mother of Kapila Devi to she take the birth from the mother, right? So then how she take the birth?
Who?
Devahuti.
Devahuti?
Yes. The mother of Kapila Dev, how she took birth?
Just like Tulsi took. No difference. That's how she took birth.
She was
Mataji,
the
she was
daughter of a
trying
king,
to
right? She was daughter of
Yeah.
a rich king. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mataji, she was asking me, she was
Mm.
saying that as did Yashoda Mata she also took a birth. So I said, no, she is the eternal mother of Krishna. So that's why she's asking this question.
Oh, okay. That's why you're asking. Yeah, Devahuti is also eternal mother of Kapila Dev, but when they appear in this material world, there will be some means in which they appear, right? So they appeared like that. It doesn't mean only in this life she's like that. Eternally, she's the mother of Kapila Dev. Okay.
Thank
Does-
you, Mataji.
Okay, you're welcome. You don't have any comments, Tulsi?
Yes, I have.
Okay, tell me what comments.
The comment just says that when you smile, your smile is very nice.
Oh my God. About the class, you should tell.
She's right
You know,
about
in
that.
the picture you're showing now,
Okay,
the-
okay, we'll talk about that later.
Mataji, in the picture, Kapila Devi is sitting, it is looking like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah.
and Sachi Mata.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
she's
looks
right
like
about
that.
that
Teaching about
too.
grains and beans.
Yeah.
Nice observation, Tulsi.
It's a nice picture. There is a peacock in the picture also.
And there's a parrot.
Yes, Radhika?
There's also a parrot.
Oh. Okay.
It's in the top right.
Top right.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the
I
window.
didn't see that.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, if nothing else, it's 8 o'clock. We'll stop here. Thank you all very much.
Happy birthday, Radhika.
Happy birthday. Oh, we should sing to Radhika.
Did everybody already sang Radhika?
No, we didn't sing.
Okay.
Hare Krishna
To you. Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna,
dear Radhika.
Radhika.
Hare Krishna to you.
May you never take birth again. May you never take birth
Birth
again.
again.
Never birth again. Go back to Godhead. Go back to Godhead. Go back to Godhead.
Are you one?
Are you one? Are you two? Are you three? Are you four? Are you five? Are you six? Are you seven?
Thank you. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing.
You're only 8, Radhika?
She's 7.
You're 7?
Yeah, she turned 7, Mataji.
Oh my
You weren't
God.
paying attention, Gita Mala.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I need to go back to school to count numbers.
Yeah, we have a lot of kids who will teach you that. You don't have to go back to school.
Right.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Happy birthday, Radhika.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for
Radhika. Thank you, Mataji. Happy birthday, Radhika.
Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.